everyone, it's Saturday. Time for another episode of Beyond Garnet. Let's get creative.
May be too intense for some listeners, may be unsuitable for sensitive people, may cause dizziness, may cause drowsiness, may cause excitability. Safety goggles may be required for listening. Take with food, avoid contact with skin, avoid extreme temperatures, and store in a cool, dry place. This is not legal advice, must be present to win. Contents under pressure may contain small parts. Listen at your own risk.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. I have a pretty cool guest for you. He's been on a lot of TV shows that you will recognize. NCIS Los Angeles, SWAT, Veep, and Desperate Housewives. He was recently in the blockbuster series, The Mandalorian. Joining me today is Dominic Pace. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
My best to you, all your listeners, and hope everyone's staying safe.
So I am curious, where did you train as an actor?
I was at the Bill Esper Studio for 2 years, and also with members of the Actors Studio, and mid to late 90s down in New York City, out in New York City there.
Oh yeah, you're an East Coast guy. You're a New York guy.
Yeah, I've always been a huge fan of Meisner. I like the fact, I think the biggest problem with actors is really getting inside your head, and I think the best thing is to sort of put it on the other person, or to put it on a situation to where all of a sudden things become more organic, and I found that the Meisner technique through William Esper was pretty much the best for me. I went into a stylized form of theater with Tim Robbins in 2004. I was with a couple of his productions, but that was an entirely different form, and that was an entirely different style. It's not very practical to working as an actor, but definitely flex your muscle without question. But pure program like the Bill Esper Studio, I can't say enough about. As a matter of fact, my teacher, Terry Knickerbocker, he went on to be a private coach for a lot of the major A-listers, specifically Sam Rockwell.
Oh, wow.
I can't say enough about him. It was just that he spoke softly but carried a big stick. One thing is that he was very gentle. Sometimes you hear a lot of legendary stories, especially with Stella Adler or even Uta Hagen, in terms of not being the most polite. But he was very gentle, but he was very truthful. And I'm forever grateful for that, because at the end of the day, you can't fool yourself with this stuff. Otherwise, you end up auditioning for 20, 30 years and not know what you're doing wrong.
Absolutely. So how are you with memorizing dialogue?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was telling my son the other day, because we were talking about him getting better at baseball.
Yeah.
I think repetition really is the most important thing. You talk about a TV series, you talk about some of the soap opera actors. I did a low-budget film for Sci-Fi Channel, and how they make these things, unfortunately, they just kind of spit them together. And, unfortunately, you don't want to look at the reviews, because, literally, you're doing 14, 15 pages a day. At the same time, I was doing 14, 15 pages a day starring in this one film, and it was about 111 pages. And when I first saw it, and they gave it to me probably 5 days before we started filming, I was very, very overwhelmed. It's something that just happens to just come to you. When you see professionals at the highest level, it's very overwhelming. But at the same time, when you do it on a repetitive basis, things become easier and easier. I'm not a big athlete, but I delved into the Spartan races there for a small amount of time, and I was so overwhelmed with some of the facts. I think that was a great example, amongst others, in regards to, say, climbing a rope, or some of the other activities that they have where, at the onset, it really just seems extremely overwhelming. But again, practice. I think it's such a cliche. Pacino will tell you the same thing. I've seen him say the same in interviews.
Yeah.
It's amazing how it sort of expands that muscle in your brain to where over a certain amount of time it becomes easier and easier.
Now, you're a really tall guy. You're like, what, 6'4"?
6'4", it has hurt me and has also helped me.
That was my question. Has it helped you or hurt you? Yeah.
It's a great question, Lana, because right now we're talking about diversity, in film, and obviously everybody's very, very passionate about that. I get very frustrated, and the reason is because this business, in my opinion, is just not fair to anyone. And I don't know necessarily if I have an argument to that. Of course, we want to diversify, but I can't tell you, how frustrated it is for me, or in other actors too, to where you walk into a room and they say, "Oh, you're too this, you're too that."
Right. Yeah.
They verbally will ask me. At the major league level, that was amazing. You nailed it. Please slate your height. I had a situation with Michael Mann and Tom Cruise one night. It was a film called Collateral, to where, it just is not going to happen. And at the end of the day, I'm not frustrated with this, 100%. But what frustrates me sometimes is some of the entitlement from some actors where they're like, well, hey, I deserve this, I deserve that. So it's like, let's be one or the other. Let us all be frustrated with the fact that the business is not fair, or the fact that we just have to accept and say, hey, you know what? They're going to cast me for what I am. There was a guest starring role on The District back in 2004 where the murderer, the killer, it was a hit and run, and I was the murderer. And the way that they found it out was I had the currency pulled back all the way. So that was a situation that worked in my favor. And there are actors out there who have that height, but it definitely hurts and helps. But my only thing is just kind of, I'm a little ambiguous in terms of the frustration as far as how unfair the business is, because I just want to say we all go through it. I think there's been kind of a war to a certain extent against, men and in terms of privilege and this and that, but it's like, I think to a certain extent, we all have to keep ourselves up. I was up for Game of Thrones, 10 years ago, and that was another situation where, as the actor, we can get frustrated, or we can say, hey, you know what? I only spend 20 minutes in the gym. I don't spend 2 hours there. I don't spend 3 hours there. So, it kind of bleeds over to other things, too, where a lot of the gripes from actors sometimes can be put, on yourself within, and you can also focus on what you're right for, what roles you're right for, because I think there's a market for everybody out there without question.
Oh, sure, yeah. Now, if you could play any role, like what is the one role that you haven't played or that is maybe your dream role that you cannot wait to land one day?
Well, I'll tell you, I've already landed it. I just want to expand on it. I played a one-of-a-kind unique bounty hunter in the Star Wars universe. And
right.
The thing for me, the campaign that I've been doing the last 6 months has been capitalizing on this very, very unique-looking character. The nickname is Gekko. And ideally, they have a lot of content that they're going to be producing for Star Wars, for Disney Plus in the coming years. So really, ultimately, my dream is to continue on with this bounty hunter and to expand his character, just because I'm such a diehard Star Wars fan and I love the fan base so much. It's been such a privilege.
Has that been your most memorable film set experience to date?
It has, because the reason I wanted to get involved in the business was to return to childhood. And for me, it was always the adventure and the action film. I love Schwarzenegger's Stallone. I love Back to the Future and Goonies and Star Wars and Indiana Jones. That was the original inspiration for a boy from New York in the 1980s as to why I wanted to make this my life and my career. So I've done a lot of modern-day crime dramas. I've done almost close to 100 shows now, which I'm really proud of, but also at the same time, the thing that I'm most proud of is just being able to be in that fantasy world, which was the ultimate childhood dream, and I'm so glad I achieved that last year through The Mandalorian.
That's cool. So, what were you like as a kid?
Oh, I was very imaginative. I loved baseball. Baseball was my original passion. Also, at the same time, I loved pop culture. I loved entertainment. I would spend the summers at my grandparents in Yonkers with my sister, and we would just watch HBO. They had everything from to Rocky. I just delved into movies so much. I love my action figures. I love my toys. I love collecting toys. And then I got into theater at 16 years old. There was a musical, Grease, and I had the starring role as Danny Zuko in Grease at 16 years old, and that's where I really ended up catching the bug. But it was really baseball and theater, and I just had a huge affinity for. I mean, not to get personal, but my girlfriends that I dated through high school, that was really took a lot of my time. I was very much a romantic, to where instead of hanging out with the boys, I would love to hang out with my girlfriend, and that just meant so much to me in terms of having those moments and that time of falling in love. There's nothing better than falling during high school or having that innocent first love in your life, and I think we've all experienced that there.
It's very cool. Now, didn't you travel around, I think I saw this like last year or the year before, to a whole bunch of baseball stadiums?
We've been doing it over time. Baseball stadiums and also movie locations as well. We have 4 baseball stadiums left, 2 states distance, Alabama and Mississippi, and then I visited must be over 200 locations all throughout the country. So it's definitely I'm a huge bucket list guy, to where I have just a ton of little, things that I want to knock off and check off before, we get older.
Right.
And it's been so fun with the family to be able to enjoy that experience. So I've got a glass case shaped like home plate in my bedroom, and right now 26 baseballs, and it's about to fill 4 more, and each one has an insignia of the stadium that we visited. So I love to travel. I love food. The food at all different ballparks and cities is just absolutely amazing in our country. So I really enjoy that. And ultimately, the adventure is fulfilling as well. Heading to Boston there as soon as we're out of this is going to be really exciting. And even my first job actually was with Miramax Films, where I was 23 years old in Singapore, which was really exciting.
Oh, sure, yeah. What a great adventure with your family. Ballparks and movie locations. I love it.
Absolutely. We've been married to my wife for 20 years. They call that a golden anniversary.
Hey, I applaud you for that. Big time. I applaud you. That's huge.
Yeah. It's easy, but at the same time, sometimes you need someone with emotional stability to where you can evolve together or at least put up with each other.
There you go.
Overall, it's an enjoyable experience. But she's a great mother and an amazing wife, and we have a really good egalitarian balance in our relationship. I know, again, I don't mean to bring up the whole thing on men lately, but there has been sort of an emasculation. But I think in society over the last few years, and the one thing I enjoy with my wife is that she has always been an alpha, and I've been an alpha as well within the relationship, where neither one has to have that female or male guilt, which I call it. So it's been really an amazing balance, and it's something that obviously we want to continue on in the growing years as we get a little grumpier.
Very cool. Now you're wanting to write a book about your travels. Is this correct?
That's correct, yeah. Actually, with road trips, with the hotels, and then also giving people a map. Like, say, you go to Astoria, Oregon, and you visit, all the Goonies locations, where to stay, where to eat. Also, stand by me if you were to do a road trip in Oregon in and of itself. There's a lot of excitement there. And then also at the same time, all throughout the country, hitting every major pop culture location. If you were to start in Los Angeles and go to New York, and where to stay, and then also what to eat. So kind of a little bit of a foodie / movie location pop culture book, and really excited to get that out over the next couple of years.
That's cool. So you'll have to keep us updated and post about that when it's going to come out.
Absolutely, Lana.
Yeah. So are you a collector of anything? I know you mentioned the baseballs and stuff like that, but is there anything else that you collect?
Original trilogy Star Wars stuff. So from the movies from Empire Strikes Back, New Hope, and Return of the Jedi. That has been the ultimate collection there. I have the original 7 9 figures.
Wow.
And also right now I've been collecting a lot of memorabilia. These fans have been so amazing with my bounty hunter. I've been collecting a lot of memorabilia that they've been giving me. So I got this great glass case in the bedroom, and I have it all displayed. And during this time, I actually offered free videos to kids. If any one of them were a little bit nervous, or to some of the Star Wars fans, just to take them around, show them my collection. And one thing that I started with my kids about 10 years ago was we started doing Lego Star Wars Galaxy spaceships.
Oh, that's cool.
We have those hanging in their room, and we've got probably about 7 to 8 hanging now. It's getting a little cluttered in there, but the Star Wars has been the main collection there. But unfortunately, it's funny because we live in Los Angeles with the two bedrooms, but every time I go, if I'm filming Atlanta or I have a project in Dallas or what have you, I just drool over those homes because there's nothing more that I want than a really amazing man cave one day where I can display all my collectibles there.
I bet. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of them. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So, who is someone who inspires you?
Oh, boy. Well,
I mean,
I'm going to go back. Yeah, I would say my grandfather. He was my maternal grandfather. He was a World War II hero who hit Normandy Beach, in 1948. 1944, June 6, 1944. He was one of the first to hit Normandy Beach at Utah Beach, but it wasn't so much his heroism there. My parents, they were two hot-headed Italians, so, unfortunately that only lasted so long. They divorced when I was very young, so I needed a father figure. And this man, after going through, and this is why I don't stress so much through this virus, after going through the Depression, after working for the CCCs, the Civilian Conservation Corps, he had to leave high school in order to support his family. And then World War II, he still had the demeanor to be such an amazing father figure to me. And he was a man. He was something in regards to, where he held me accountable. And it wasn't just being coddled, and that's what I needed as a kid. I think that's a lot of boys and girls need, especially in today's society, to where, you have somebody who gives you that discipline and tells you, it's not always going to be, you didn't always do a great job. But he had that perfect balance. He was an amazing man, the cornerstone of our family. There were also parents, teachers, and coaches throughout my town of Austin, New York, that were very inspirational to me and always were the sort of a cornerstone and the foundation of my inspiration to become an actor and to pursue this crazy business. So many to name, but most importantly, my maternal grandfather, William Peck, we have buried there.
You know, it makes all the difference in the world to have a mentor and people who support you when you're young.
Yeah. Without question, I was telling my son because, every now and then, you flip around, you can't avoid negative television. And I was flipping around, there was some crime documentaries, and my son was asking me questions, 11 years old, and I told him actually last night, I said, you don't realize this, but you just don't know how lucky you are where, you were talking about kids who grew up to be killers. And, a lot of them had to deal with a tremendous amount of abuse in many different ways. And I was just telling my son, you may not realize it now, how grateful, you have to be to have such a, not only, his mom and dad, but also a loving brother and cousins, and, the extended family to where everyone is just in your corner rooting for you for the best in your life because, we all know that with many families,
Right, absolutely. Looking through everything and doing a little research on you before we did the podcast, you're a pretty charitable guy. And
yes.
You started a grant in your grandfather's honor. This is correct, right? Yeah, tell us about that.
That is correct, yeah. From Austin High School, again, when I started off as an artist, all I had was a copy of Backstage, and I had a train ticket. My mother was so supportive. I told her I wasn't going to be on the couch smoking weed or playing PlayStation. I dropped out of college, and I said, I'm going to really pursue this 110%. So the one thing for me was I would have loved to have had a guardian angel, so to speak, or somebody that would just said to them, hey, you know what, believe in yourself or follow your dreams. So it's a small grant that I've given from time to time to my high school. But it extends out from there. I've been very much involved with LA Children's Hospital out here, Shane's Inspiration, which builds playgrounds for kids that are handicapped. I've been involved with the LA Food Drive right now as well, and then also the LA Mission, which is involved in the homeless, and the LA Women's Downtown Center as well. At the end of the day, when we at the greatest generation, in my opinion, our grandparents' generation, we realized how hard it was for them. It makes me appreciate each and every day in this town to be able to do what I love. Everyone's shooting for the stars, and I understand that obviously we all want to be at the Oscar podium one day, but at the same time, we all need to take a minute and to just appreciate what we have. I think that's really the most important thing. And when you do that, I think, within your heart, you can't give enough. The times that I've been the most in love in my life, say with a woman or a human being, has been not when you receive, but it's what you give to them. And to me, it's been the most gratifying feeling is how can I give? Because in the end, that ends up being more rewarding for you, ironically, than receiving. So, it's been something I've been very passionate about. Fortunately, the Star Wars community has about 4 or 5 major charity groups. And I've been so fortunate to be able to be a small ambassador to offer my autograph, to say hello to a child or someone in need. One in particular is the 501st Legion, just made up of thousands and thousands of Star Wars fans throughout the world, and not even just the United States. So it's just been an honor to be a part of that and to continue to help others and to inspire others as we get older here.
Well, you've just made the top 5 of my inspiration list. Absolutely, yeah. And I agree with you. It feels so good to be giving.
Yeah, especially during this time, we have to understand, when people have been posting it too, it's like, look, this is, it's certainly an uncomfortable circumstance, but at the same time, we've got a roof over our head. We have food. I mean, it's not like we're out on the streets in any way, at least, most of us. And we just have to be appreciative and hopefully ride this out, and hopefully we'll be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel there sooner than later there with the virus.
Yeah, I hope so. So tell us about a couple of future goals that you have set for yourself.
We've really gotten off to an amazing start with this branding of this bounty hunter, and I really owe so much to the Star Wars community for really showing their support. I've done little featured roles and co-stars and guest stars throughout my course of my career, but nothing has ever received this amount of attention. So it really is continuing on with this convention tour, Comic-Con tours all throughout the world. Also at the same time, I really would like to get to the next level as an actor to where I've been a working actor. I've been really fortunate. But at the same time, I would love to have it to where my agent just has us at a level where it's what's called offer only. To where, we're not giving that high of a quote, but also at the same time, my name would be able to hopefully generate a little bit more financing for, say, a B-level film. So those are my realistic goals right now, is really continuing on with the branding of this Gekko character from Star Wars, hopefully getting invited back by Disney to portray the character, and also at the same time just to continue rising up on a realistic level with my career to where I start looking more and more just based on my name for putting in 20-plus years of grit and elbow grease.
Right.
I'd like to believe that now it's getting a little easier. And to be honest with you, the last couple of years it has felt a little easier.
So how are you with dialects?
A little bit of Russian dialect, and then also at the same time Italian from the motherland, and also New York Italian is really my go-to. For me, I love Tom Hanks. I mean, I love Daniel Day-Lewis, where they just have this enormous range. For me, I enjoy performing, but I also don't fault Hollywood for kind of giving me sort of a pigeonhole in being that guard or being that, the mob guy or what have you. The thing that really makes a difference is just the texture of the writing.
Yeah.
Where, it's something to where then you're able to build on the character. But I'm not one of these to where it's like, oh, God, I don't want to play that again, or I don't want to do that again. I totally respect the system, even if you were to cast me in your film. I wouldn't expect to be the boy next door. It
Right.
is not something. As much as I played a dad, or I played a parent detective in a great movie called Ernie and Serby a few years ago. At the same time, I don't mind falling into that New York. I had a recurring on NBC Superstore starring America Ferrera, where I'm the warehouse manager. And Italians have been sort of get your hands dirty, blue collar workers in many ways. I haven't had too much of an issue with it, but just to answer the question, it'd be kind of a New York Italian, a little bit of the motherland, which I did Italy on INCOMPETECH. And then also some of the Russian dialect as well, which I did on The Riches, starring Eddie Izzard there. So, yeah, that's been a little bit of my range there.
Cool. Very cool. Who are a couple of people you'd like to work with in the future that you haven't gotten to work with yet?
I always enjoy, and I'm so inspired now by so many of the young girls being inspired by strong women. Well, the same goes for us in terms of strong men, and for me, it's just always been my heroes from childhood. It all goes back to that, of Schwarzenegger and Harrison Ford. They just were, they commanded the screen. They had a commanding presence. And to me, they were the ultimate movie stars. I know they're getting up there in age, but ultimately for me, as far as who I would love to work with, would be just my childhood idols. That to me means more. There's no question. There's an amazing slew of amazing actors and actresses out there. But for me, just the heroism of when I was a kid, the people that I looked up to was Ford and Schwarzenegger. So ultimately, that would be the main dream there.
Very cool. You would look good in a scene smoking a cigar with those guys.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, I noticed you get tons of fan artwork for your character from The Mandalorian. How many pieces do you think you've received?
Oh, boy. I would say maybe 20 to 40. And again, what's really been amazing is just being able to interact with them. And when they respond back and say, oh, my God, I can't believe that Dominic liked my picture. What I've been telling them, I just actually sent some out. We go to the post office every day, is, send it to me. I'll sign it for you and send it back. Because if they made my day, I want to make their day as well. The only thing that's kind of throwing me off with some of the new style saying is, look, we all have political opinions and we all have social opinions, but my wife keeps nudging me because now when I comment, 2, 4, 5 years ago, I used to comment as a layperson. But now if I comment on something that might be a touchy subject, I have to be careful because really you end up being sort of a role model for some people. So sometimes I don't want to add that controversy, but sometimes, look, I don't care which side of the coin you're on. I support you 100% in terms of believing what you believe in. But now it's like I have to be careful. So that's been kind of an interesting little thing over the last few months to where sometimes I just want to interject and be like, I think this is great, but where are they going to find the money for that? Or, how are you going to, pay off every student loan or what have you?
Yeah.
And then people will be like, oh my God, Dominic Pace just commented. And I'm scared now because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Obviously, we know that politics and social issues are so sensitive. So
yes.
That's been kind of an interesting thing. But in terms of the fans, the outpouring of support has been amazing.
I know actors try to stay in shape for the most part. What is your favorite type of cake?
I wish I could tell you how my workout routine is just spot on and everything else. Being a character actor, that's one of the great things. I mean, you take John Candy, who's a legend. I mean, of course, unfortunately, he overdid it a little too much. But, I'm creation. So I'll fall in every now and then to get into a great health kick. But at the same time, Italians, we love to break bread, as they say. So As far as the cake, though, you can't go wrong with an ice cream cake with all the chocolate crunchies from Carvel there.
I love it. Those are really good. I've had those. Yes. Are there, I know you mentioned it in the beginning, but tell us what current projects you have that you can talk about.
I worked on it for 5 years. Finally finished the financing, and it's ready to be distributed. Unfortunately, I was supposed to be in London for the world premiere on March 27th, but it's called Anonymous Killers. I star as Romero Scarinelli. It's an amazing sociological thriller. It touches on a lot of the social and political issues of today, but in a way that is not really forceful, in that whatever side of the coin you're on, you'll be able to just kind of take it in stride and take it in perspective. It's not like pushing you left, it's the right. It's just kind of giving you an opportunity to make up your own opinions in terms of privilege, those who come from privilege, those who don't. And whether you agree with it or you don't, there will still be an audience for it in terms of, there'll still be appeal for it when you see this film. I'm really mostly excited about that. I also have a supporting role in a feature film called Psychosis opposite Tyler Maine. That'll be also another sociological thriller. Again, we'll begin filming a feature film called Deceived, and that will be in Boston coming in a few months. We are very hopeful that Gekko, the bounty hunter, is going to be featured in a Marvel comic book pretty soon called Star Wars Bounty Hunter. So be on the lookout for that. And other than that, right now, we just unfortunately have our hands tied in terms of just all production kind of slowing down. But really excited for those two projects, and most importantly, continue on my tour with all the comic conventions where I can meet so many of these Star Wars fans and kind of reach out and enjoy my love of travel again there as well.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah. Boy, you do. You've got a huge legion of fans with Star Wars, don't you?
Yeah, it's been great, and like I said, it's just it's more a compliment to George Lucas and the magic that they've created now for Disney. He really gets it on. I mean, again, you can compare perhaps Marvel and DC, but I don't think anything compares to the Star Wars and maybe a little bit of the Star Trek fans. Yeah, really excited to see where the future leads us through the fence there.
Awesome. So, if you could give one piece of advice to anyone listening, what would it be?
If they are actors, it would be really to embrace the odd jobs. The reason I've been able to stay consistent with this business, the not so glamorous side of it, to where it's everything from moving companies to Uber to delivery driving, whatever it is, to really just stay grounded, because those odd jobs have that flexibility in order to give you the freedom to do your work. And I will tell you, over time, it ends up paying extreme dividends because you're able to follow your dream and also at the same time never quit, because you're able to make that money on the side, but at the same time still follow your dream. I can't tell you how gratifying that's been, and that's to continue, again, not to be cliche, but to follow that dream, but to do it through the practicality of staying humble through those odd jobs.
Oh, that's great advice. Fantastic, yeah. So if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you?
Absolutely. It's Dominic Pace all across the board, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Always happy to answer any questions. If anybody needs a link to a 90-minute seminar I did, it's absolutely free in regards to working as an actor. I have that link for anyone who needs it. And really always here for all the fans and listeners there. And I appreciate you so much there, Lana.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dominic. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, you too. Take care. Feel free to share this podcast with your friends and family. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at It's Me, Lana Reed. Also, stop by Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and review. Many thanks to the musical genius of Kevin MacLeod at INCOMPETECH for our super slick theme song, Jet Fueled Vixen. Thank you to Michelle Lawson for our witty and fun disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by the guests on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the host, Beyond Garnet, or Garnet Films.